And thank you for staying with us on the Daybreak, a show coming to you live from our studio here in the nation's capital. Now, over the years, the power sector in Nigeria has not been meeting the needs of Nigerians despite the huge investment to meet the nation's demand. As part of the measures to improve the electricity in Nigeria, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has signed into law the Electricity Act Amendment Bill 2024. Now, this act aims to break the monopoly in electricity generation, transmission, and distribution at the national level. It seeks to address the development and environmental concerns of host communities and set aside 5% of the actual annual operating expenditures of power generating companies from the preceding year for the development of their respective host communities. This new law further provides that the funds set aside for the development of host communities will be received, managed, and administered for infrastructure development in the host communities by a reputable trustee and manager to be jointly appointed by the respective GenCo and their host community. To discuss all of this in order for Nigerians to understand the benefits of this to every Nigerian, we have in the studio Dr. Abubakar Atiku Tambuwal. He is the former Managing Director of Transmission Company of Nigeria. He is also the board of Abuja Electricity Distribution Company of Nigeria, Director in Data Analytics and Solution Limited, and an associate professor in the Department of Electronics and Electrical Engineering, Usman Danfodio University in Sokoto. Good morning, and thank you for joining us.
Good morning.
And also in the studio, we have Engineer Kingsley Odo. He was the technical advisor to the former Minister of Power and also the founder of Synthesis Technologies Limited. Good morning, Engineer. Thank you.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you.
All right, let's head on. Doctor, let's start with you. This bill, we saw it happened. It was passed in 2023, but then now in 2024, there's a revise of it. So can you give us the key changes introduced in this bill?
Thank you. The bill, as you rightly said, was already passed into law, but then thereafter, there are some concerns which were expressed by Nigerians, particularly recent. Some state governors have come up with demand for money or for funds because these generating stations were situated in their states. So to address this concern, this amendment was thought and it was passed into law, fundamentally to see how the host communities can benefit or be able to be assisted in terms of infrastructural development from the generating companies. This is also, as in other words, part of corporate social responsibility, which has been taking place, but not in a very systematic way. But this law now has made it mandatory for the generation companies to give out 5% of their annual operating expenses to the host communities in order to help the development of those communities.
All right, let's talk to you, Engineer. What is your take in this revised Electric or Power Act bill that was passed?
Thank you very much. Quite frankly, it's a welcome development. I must tell you that the host communities have been experiencing lots of wear and tear. You need to see a typical hydro plant. You will see the movements, the realignments, displacements, and all of this. And so they do suffer a lot. Yes, the generating companies come there, make a lot of money, but the host communities are not directly impacted. So it is a welcome development. It's the beginning point. 5% is good. We believe that as times go on, as things evolve, more amendments will come that would benefit host communities across the country. So yes, it's a welcome development, that we're excited about that.
All right, engineer, let's talk about the overview. I mean, one thing that we're seeing now is that this thing would definitely favor host communities. But how does the average Nigerian also receive, the positive impact of this decision?
Thank you very much. I believe that the first impact is by way of infrastructure. Once that money is targeted at building infrastructure in those communities, for example, build more roads, access roads, electricity, linkages, and all of that, then you would see the impact really positively impact the ordinary man. You're not expecting the Gencos to put monies in their pockets, but it's targeted at building up or ramping up on infrastructure. And so once that happens, you would see the impact in a lot of ways. You would see that the roads are built, waterways are properly channeled, more electricity lines to the communities are built. And so you would see economy, business, and all of this, or even street lightings to these communities, areas where you never saw businesses run into the evenings, you would now see those businesses. So that is a positive impact on those communities, and that's the only way really it will impact them, by way of infrastructure.
All right, let's come back to Doctor. You've worked with the TCN, and you know all the crisis that is, bedeviling the power sector in Nigeria, and how Nigerians are always complaining about not having available power. So how do you think all of this would change the narrative?
Yeah, the new Electricity Act, as we know, is introduced to really make improvements in the power supply delivery in Nigeria by way of having state governments to have their own generation, transmission and distribution entities. And this will definitely improve, because the national grid as it is not robust enough, cannot satisfy all the demands across the country. So if a state is able to come up with its own laws and regulations, just as we had heard 2 days ago, Oyo State has taken the lead in getting these laws and regulatory body set up. So we expect investors to come in, particularly in mini grids, solar, renewables energy, that can be set up in different parts of the states to address those areas where the grid has not reached. So I think it is a very good development. The Act has also empowered, made it possible for investors to come in and set off 1 megawatt. If you are having a 1 megawatt plant, you don't need a license. You just go straight away and start production. And for distribution entities, any distribution which is less than 100 kilowatt may not require licenses. So it has made it really easy and convenient for investors to come and get electricity in any part of the country, particularly, like I said, where the national grid cannot extend. Yeah.
All right, engineer, let's talk about using your knowledge. How do you think the state would be able to make this work? Do you foresee any challenges?
Yes, there are lots of challenges. Funding challenges are at the forefront of a lot of the challenges. But from what the former MD said, believe me, it's a game changer. I'll just backtrack a little. Recall that at some point, a lot of things in this scheme of what he mentioned were on the exclusive lists. And so to make it really, to incentivize the sector or to make it really exciting for business, it had to be removed from the exclusive list to the concurrent list. It means that previously what you had was only rural electrification, and states were able to deal with only that subset of the entire scheme, rural electrification. But with this development, also adding the Act of 2023 and this recent amendment, it has excited the sector. Now, to your question, are there challenges? Yes, there are. So states have to do something. Beyond Oyo State, a lot of states have started this process. I know Enugu, Lagos, a whole lot have started the process. I think Delta, a few of them are already doing the works, trying to get their acts signed by their state assemblies, and then moved on. They will now move on to implementation. The real challenge here will be how to attract investment. So signing the law is one thing. Creating the right environment for investors to come in is another thing. So states must begin to find ways to incentivize. I mean, giving lands for free, creating frameworks for ease of repatriation of profits, and all those things must be thought through. Otherwise, it will just be a piece of legislation. And so, to answer your question, the primary challenge they would have is funding. The second one, you and I know, is insecurity. How do I come and put an investment in a place where I know that my investment can go up in flames? I mean, without recourse to anything. And so state governors and states must begin to find ways to create enabling environments, secure environments for that kind of investment. And recall that power investments are huge, and they have long periods of investment even before you start bringing the returns back. So within this time frame, state governors must find a way to secure those investments. They must also find ways to create funding platforms that would aid the investors. For example, you want to build hubs for typical, if it's agro hubs, thank God for what the federal government is doing by this agricultural stuff across the country. So state governors must ride on this to build hubs that would create structures for typical investors. So if it is solar, if it is wind, or mini small hydros, whatever the framework is, the governor and the state management must begin to see where fits what in a short time, so that returns can come, and then incentivize these processes. So two key things are how to incentivize investors, how to deal with security issues. There are a lot more other issues, but at least these are two primary issues.
Top ones. I mean, yes, in what you mentioned, you made mention of a lot of things, and you mentioned that, I mean, before it used to be the rural doing, you know, the lots, and now they're taking it. So what is the, if this is distributed to all different states, I mean, there's huge responsibility for these states now, considering they're not able to even reach the main goal of where they're going to, and this is another added you know, responsibility to the state. So what about the rural? What are the responsibilities that they'll be left with?
You mean the Federal Rural Electricity Agency? Okay, so I'll backtrack a little so that I can give you the entire framework of what exists. Before now, it's only rural electrification. So mini-grids and off-grid frameworks that he mentioned. Mini-grids, off-grids are areas where they call them unserved or underserved communities. So these communities really don't have access to electricity. So what state governors or governments used to do is target those areas, possibly run distribution lines to those areas, and then if they're not able to, they will put small mini and off-grid framework such that they have at least a similitude of a good life, right? Now, with this new act, state governors can now do the entire gamut or invest or create structures, so to say, in the entire gamut. That means they're not only creating rural now, they're now dealing with ISO, which is Independent Systems Operation. They're now dealing with market operation. They're not dealing with even creating transmission infrastructure, creating regulatory agencies that would drive those processes. So it's like they've been really empowered. Now, you spoke about the challenge, but I want to speak to the challenge that leads to the benefit.
Okay.
It's challenging, but any state that's able to incentivize the process, create an enabling environment, investors will bring in the money, they would make the investment happen, and then the state will benefit. So it's a two-way benefit. So yes, there's an initial challenge, but thereafter there are benefits that accrue. And so you must see the benefits to deal with the challenges.
Indeed. Yes. I mean, at the end of the day, Nigerians are always told, just have hope. I mean, the outcome would be better. All right, Doctor, let's hear from you. So how will this Nigeria Electricity Amendment Act address challenges such as electricity theft? I mean, we see that kind of situation and distribution losses.
Yeah, I think the Act has really been very specific on issues of electricity theft, which hitherto has not been given the due attention. There has not been proper legislation, and even at the legal side of it, we have a lot of cases, and then nothing virtually is being done to address this, to criminals as per se, in terms of prosecuting them. So I think the Act has been very specific in coming up with legislative framework to deal with this issue of electricity theft. Believe with what we have seen, there's going to be special courts to deal with this electricity theft, such that it can be done quickly instead of going through the normal legal court system. So there's quite a lot of improvement in that respect, and I believe if it is well implemented, we will be able to curb this menace of electricity or even reduce it to the barest minimum.
All right, Doctor, there is energy, issue in the world globally right now, and power is one thing that affects everything. So I want to digress a bit. In relation to the Nigeria-Niger bilateral agreement about the dam, and then now there is issues, and ECOWAS is literally using Nigeria to block this. Do you think, if Niger should act on creating some dam, it could affect all of this plan for Nigeria?
To my own understanding, the negatives effect, but I think we should be able to overcome it. Even if in the event that they dam the Niger River, which is the source of water to Jeba and Kainji, we could still be able to survive. We have Shiroro, which is independent of that river, and downstream Shiroro is Zungeru, which has just been commissioned to give us up to 700 megawatt. So I think we should be able to overcome whatever is bound to happen in that respect. And remember that we should have proper energy mix, such that we have other sources as our energy source. We have coal, abundance of coal, which has been abandoned virtually, even though it's not so clean, but in our present circumstances, nothing stops us from getting the coal reintroduced for our power generation. We have, on the other side, which has been lingering, the Mambila, which of course is a very huge project that can deliver a lot of megawatts.
The federal government have started.
Yes, so we believe what is happening, if we're able to overcome all the issues there, we should be able to say that in the next couple of years, 5, 10 years, we should be able to get that project completed, and damming of River Niger will really not matter much.
An issue to us. Okay, engineer, let's talk about expectations of Nigerians. How long should Nigerians expect? I mean, we're talking about the short term and the long term. At what point should Nigeria say, okay, we're going to be able to enjoy electricity in the nation full time? And at what for the short time, what should Nigerians at least expect?
Before I answer your question, I would speak to one aspect that Doctor spoke to right now, and it's the area of energy theft. I'll just quickly add a few.
Of course.
That the lifeblood of energy and money assurances or revenue assurances is metering. Our metering gap is quite huge. And so the theft is huge. If you look at the entire framework of the losses that we experience as a nation, so there's a technical jargon that's called aggregated technical, commercial, and collection losses. There are three legs of losses that we lose. So the first is the technical loss, the second is the collection loss, and then the commercial loss. So tackling these losses will drastically reduce theft. So what is proposed is that we must close the metering gap, which is staggering. It's about between 8 to 12 and even more, because we don't have that data. So if we close that gap, if I meter your house properly, chances are that the loss that I would experience is far, far less than if I give you estimated billing. Everybody loses. You lose, government loses, the disco loses. The disco loses as well. So all of this must be dealt with intentionally, that we must close this metering gap, and that's critical. So that is one effective way of reducing theft. Today, everybody steals. The loss level stands at over 50%. And that has been very moderate. Okay, that's answering that. To your question, you said, how long can Nigerians wait? It's a very good question. I also want to speak to the damming on the Cameroon side and on the Niger side. It will affect us if we don't quickly deal with the alternative sources that we have. Because once we know recently when Cameroon was announcing that they would open and that dam, and they kept announcing, and we were afraid that
there was panic.
There was panic in Nigeria that look, it will affect a lot of communities downstream. Now imagine that it is now dammed even more, that the water that we expect in our waterfall, which creates our hydro framework, is reduced in a way. So. And rightfully so, if we create alternatives quickly. And by alternatives, I mean that we must ramp up on our mini-grids and off-grid frameworks. It is critical. We've got sunlight in Nigeria. So those energy mixes are really, really critical. We also have gas. But we've had challenges with gas. Well, I do know that these are challenges that can be dealt with. However, if we ramp up on our gas availability to drive our gas turbines, which gives us about 80% of our energy today, and we also ramp up on our off-grid, mini-grid frameworks in the way that the states are empowered now to be able to drill through very quickly. Once that happens, I will still give an average of about 10 years with consistent work wobbling in the right direction. Then we'll be able to achieve some similitude of stability within a 5-year, 10-year window.
5-year, 10-year for an average Nigerian, it's a long time.
No, we build towards it. So it's not, we're not saying it in 5-10 years, then that's when, we're saying when you ask the question of stability. So you'll experience consistent growth. Today our grid sits between 3,000 to 5,000 megawatts. And now we're going to have the states doing a lot of things, ramping up from that end. And that will put less pressure on the national grid, and then they will take that energy to places that they need it. States who are empowered are doing their own thing. So when you see that build up, gradually, everybody builds up towards one purpose. Between 5-10 years, we'll see a very massive impact. And it will be significant enough for you to know that, yes, we are really building up. Thank you.
All right, let's come back to Dr. TCN. If they, at this point, if the state should take on this and there is, benefits for them, how are they going to work with, the TCN? What would be the collaboration?
Well, TCN, as you know, is responsible for the system operations. Under it, fundamentally, there's market operations, there's system operator. So I think the system operator is very critical, such that it has to interface with the states that have already started generating. Some of them could be mini grids, which could be interconnected with the grid. So in that case, there has to be proper synergy and coordination between the system operator at the TCN and the system operation, which is going to be established also at the state level. So that has to be very critical, such that we have proper coordination of the power flow across the national grid or the transmission network. So it's very critical. And that is where I think there's a lot of gray areas which has to be properly looked into between this state's generation and the transmission grid.
So is the TCN still going to, will the power distribution?
Yeah, it will still will the power, particularly, like he said, to areas where it is needed in the event that we have states also generating. The states cannot generate all what they need. So TCN or the national grid is still relevant. So we will still have power flow across. So
TCN can do that?
TCN, yeah, it has been capable of doing it. Even now, that's what it has been doing. So it's just to expand its operation such that we have the SCADA and all those controls linked up to take care of the interconnections that may likely happen between new entries, new generation entities that are coming in the states that are likely to feed into the national grid. So that coordination must be there.
But Doctor, let's not forget the TCN can only generate about 5,000. So if there is more to it, would it be capable to,
Let me correct it. It's not TCN generating, it's the generating company generating, wheeling. Yeah, TCN...
transmitting, rather.
Exactly, transmitting 5,000. It is not a stagnant network. Like now, it is expanding. It has its own plan of system transmission expansion, and I believe it is in progress. And with what is happening with national power initiatives, Siemens, we also anticipate improvement in terms of expansion of the grid to about 25,000 megawatts, which was the mandate by the end of that undertaking.
Okay, I would want to hear your answer to this. Engineer previously made mention of what it's not about putting, amending the bill. It's it's about what to expect. What are the federal government putting in place in terms of making sure this thing works? So how do you think the government would ensure the implementation of this? I mean, considering corruption, which we know for a fact that also the TCN in general have had issues of corruption or misappropriation of funds, let's use that word, and now they're saying there will be about 5%. So how do you think the implementation of management of this fund would be able to be done properly?
Well, the act or the amendment was very explicit. It has stated that a trustee will be established between the GENCOs and the host communities, in which case the state government will also be part of it. So that trustee should be able to warehouse the funds and consider the projects that are relevant and get necessary and due approvals for it to be implemented. So once that is done, I think we'll be able to eliminate all those misappropriations and tendencies of corruption. So I think we have to really be patriotic in that manner, such that whoever is interested in administering the fund should be able to deliver and live up to expectation.
Engineer, do you have faith in the process?
Of course. By process, I suspect you mean the new amendment?
Yes, the amendment bill, of course.
Of course. It's wobbling in the right direction. I can tell you it's the right thing to do. Communities have been agitating for this. If you see these communities, especially in the hydro communities, there's massive movement of people, displacement of people, and there's no assurance that government does anything. Recall that the GENCOs, all they do is they've come there to make money and then build their companies. The only benefit these communities would have is statutory benefits, which this 5% seem to address. And so you're not only coming to make money, you're also trying to build the community. I would say that most GENCOs have actually had CSO in place. That's is it what they call it?
Yes, sir.
Yes, community
social
responsibilities. Sorry, they've had that in place for some of them, but it's not impactful. It's not a statutory demand. So before now, they will do what they like to do, but today, 5% of whatever they make as profit must go to that host community. So yes, if it is well implemented with the board of trustees that is above board and all of those processes that is transparent, then the communities will benefit.
Let's talk about funding. I mean, we don't really know if that 5% will be enough for the state government, to keep everything going. So you made mention earlier of insecurities and a lot of things that the states have to put in place in order to attract investors. So how would you suggest, the states to get funds in order to make sure this Amendment Act benefits their people?
So states are already fighting insecurity with or without the GENCOs. Right. So they must deal with their own issues, and the mandate of governance is that you must deal with welfare of the people, security of the people, making sure this is the core of the mandate on you as government. So in addressing this, it's clear that the states will already be doing what they're doing. So they're not waiting for the GENCO 5% to deal with the issues of insecurity. In any case, for you to attract investors to your state, you must deal with this whether GENCOs are there or not. And because beyond GENCOs, so it's a benefit to you that GENCOs are in the process. So that's additional 5% that you can see and target. But you're already dealing with issues of insecurity, the welfare of the people, good governance, and all of this. So as a state governor, this is just an added fund in delivering on your mandate. So I believe that they will not be looking only at this 5% to deliver on the core mandate that they have been elected to deal with. So my thinking clearly is, yes, this 5% is an added fund, and it is, if you as a governor, if you know that you have, for example, Niger State has massive, they have Kenji, I'm correct?
Yeah.
They have Shiroro, and they have Jebba. Niger State is sitting as king, for example. So if they are wise, I'd expect Niger State to put their own sincere and upright person who sits as one of the trustees to administer this process, so that they can truly see that 5% is 5%. And look at them now, for example, these 5%, that works out to be 15%, and plus other things that they will do. So it's exciting for states who have, that have massive investors in the, or investment in the GENCO frameworks.
Framework. Let's hear your thoughts, Doctor, on the framework.
Yeah, I think what he said is quite right. But I also want to add that even before this act, we have Hyperdeck, and that is meant to address the issues of hydro power generating areas. This includes Niger, of course, as he said, Kebbi, and Kwara, and others. So that is also a source of funding, and it is being well taken care of by federal government. So in addition to this 5%, or what the Electricity Act has provided, I think there is massive funding for these states to be developed if it is properly put into use. Okay,
so at the end of the day, Doctor, it's all about, you know, a giving. It's like a business you're giving out, so definitely there is so much expectations. So talking about investors, you know, in electricity sector, is there any incentive that's been put in place in order to benefit and attract investors to come and invest in the electricity sector?
Well, I think, as he rightly said, one of the incentive for these investors is to provide enabling environment for them. Security, as he said, number one. Then there are a lot of other things like tax rebates, a lot of issues to do with repatriation of their profits, easy repatriation, and also the state governments now should be able to attract the investors by providing free lands, as he rightly said, for them. If it is solar, we know it involves massive hectares of land. So this should be able to be provided to the investors. Even if the state government want to put it as part of their equity, there is no harm to it. And these are the issues that investors will look forward to, for them to be able to. And also another thing which is very imperative here is the tariff. We all know solar or photovoltaic tariff worldwide is quite much higher than the conventional generation. So that has to be looked into, so that a proper tariff affordable to the end users, and also that will enable the investors to recoup their investment within the stipulated time. It's very important for that. So PPAs, when they are going to be signed, either by off-takers, whether it is the state government, whether it is industries or whatever, or even the distribution companies who are owners of the distribution network, they have to sit down together and agree on a tariff. And NEC, or the necessary regulatory body in the state, must be able to come in and provide that appropriate tariff for them to be able to invest.
All right, you made mention of the NEC. What would be their role in all of this?
Well, NEC is still relevant because if you have any interstate generation, I think the state regulators cannot function there once it has crossed 2 states or more. So NEC is still in charge. And whereby also you need to have a large plant or distribution companies which will serve different or many states. So you cannot charge state regulators in that regulation. It is NEC that will ultimately determine the licensing and regulatory authority over these investors.
Okay. Well, we hope that everything will pan out well. Engineer, I would want to hear your thoughts on all of this. Now, some states have already started the initiative of this in order to benefit their states, and others are still in the contemplating, we're still working on it stage. So what would be your advice for, both the states that are already making the steps and the ones that are still yet to start making that decision?
Thank you very much, and that's a very, very interesting question. Doctor mentioned something about interconnection points. We call them boundary points. Critically, a typical transmission line will radiate across states, right? And so if a state wants to invest in its own transmission network, it means that it will either partner with existing TCN or run its own network. Now, if you are picking power or load in our industry from another state, then interconnection becomes necessary. So you're going to see a play of boundary meters, a play of give and take at those boundaries. If a state typically generates more than it can consume, it can sell to other states, or it can even sell to the grid. So at that point, there's going to be interconnection points with boundary meters. So when energy is flowing from my state into the other state or into the grid, it is metered and paid for. So the national MO, which is the market operator that does the settlements, which sits today on that Transmission Company of Nigeria, would settle those payments. Now, coming back to within your state, if you're able to generate, transmit, and distribute, you have no business with NERC, you have no business with TCN, you have no business with any of these national bodies. But once you are moving or taking energy from another state or from the grid into your own state, either to complement your existing, then you must sign those PPAs. So it's a very massive interplay. It's exciting. That's why your MO in your state must be effective, market operator. And your ISO, which is your SO, systems operator, that does your dispatch, because it's an interesting interplay. So you will see that on the dispatch board, I'm able to see the energy that's gone, energy that is coming. I'm able to meter it properly and get paid for, or for that service. So it's a very exciting time if well implemented.
It does sound exciting.
Yeah.
All right. I mean, due to time constraint, of course, I would want to hear from Dr. Tambuwal. Last remark in all of this.
Well, he has touched the issue of metering, which is really very critical and it's affecting almost everybody in Nigeria. Just recently, NEC has slammed charge of, I think, 10.5 billion on the distribution companies for over $1 billion of the capped customers, or rather those on estimate. And for it to be implemented, we await NEC directives on what each distribution company is going to pay its estimated customers who have been overestimated. So that, of course, is going to be paid over in credit in the next billing cycle. They will be credited with whatever is due to them. So I think the issue of metering is very fundamental. It has to be properly looked into by the distribution companies so that we eliminate this overestimation or crazy billing. And as he rightly said, it is only through metering that we'll be able to even account for the energy. Billing inefficiency is very low, which means a lot of power is being lost even before it is being billed. So these are issues which has to be drastically addressed for the industry to move forward.
Indeed, Doctor. I think Nigerians will be grateful for this, you pointing that out, and hopefully something will be done about that. All right, quickly, Engineer, closing remark on all of this. I know that for a fact you have a huge insight on this amendment bill.
Yes, thank you very much. I can tell you that Nigeria is work in progress. We're not there yet, but I am very positive that we'll get there. And energy is a major leap forward for any society, any community. If we really put our hands on this plow and not look back and implement these things that we have signed in as laws and the amendments, and state governments are really excited, because I've seen that some states don't even know what's happening right now.
Indeed.
And that's a challenge. So, so a lot of awareness. Energy is a commodity that must be paid for. We must get away from the notion that energy is like social service. Energy is business. It's like going to the shop and buying coffee or whatever, and you pay for it. So everybody must know as Nigerians that for the energy sector to move forward, there must be the willingness of everybody to pay for what is consumed. Now, I do know that there are lots of insincerity across the value chain. So to plug that and to cure that cancer, we need to be able to effectively, boldly carry out a metering process, because that is the first cure. The second cure is the discos, the distribution companies must also come. He that speaks to equity must come with clean hands. The discos must find ways to truly, this is 10 years, to truly say, look, you know what? Let us begin to help the system to grow. Transmission company, across the value chain, all parties must put their hands on this plow and be determined to move away from this 3,000, 5,000 megawatts ding-dong that we have had in the last God knows how many years. So we must now begin to deal with this, to say, and let there be consequences as well. What has just happened now is the beginning point. While I don't know the full details of it and how it will be implemented, but I do know that there should be consequences for things that are not done properly, and also reward for things that are done properly. Once all of these things are in place, the power sector is the beginning point and the lifeblood of any community. And I pray that we're able to put our hands on this plow and run with it.
Amen
Thank you very
to that.
much.
Thank you so much, Engineer Kingsley Odo, the former advisor or technical advisor to the former Minister of Power, also founder of Synthesis Technologies Limited. Thank you so much. I appreciate you.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. And Dr. Tamboel Abubakar Atiku, thank you so much for joining us, former Managing Director of Transmission Company of Nigeria, the TCN, also in the board of Abuja Electricity Distribution Company of Nigeria, Director in Data Analytics and Solution Limited, and much more, honestly. So I appreciate your time also, Doctor.
You're welcome.
And of course, with that, we'll take a quick break. And when we come back, the show continues. Stay with us.
Time now to take a look at the front pages of some select national dailies. It's time for us to review some of the big stories making the rounds across some select national dailies this morning on the program. First on our to-do list is the front page of the Daily Trust newspaper for today, Monday, February 12, 2024. Here it goes. Just ignore the pictures there if they offend you in any way, shape or form. High cost of living. Pray, repent, Sultan tells Nigerians. Listen, I understand where this is coming from, but I think more of this energy should be channeled towards, the people at the top who are making a hash of the entire situation, really, because for the most part, Nigerians are just at the receiving end of this whole economic mess that we're experiencing. Still talking about the economy, the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, says Nigeria experiencing stalled per capita growth, poverty, and insecurity. Talk about an open secret. More on that story on page 23. On page 3, you'll find the story that goes, alleged killing of graduate sparks protest in Kaduna community. More on that on page 3. How about this one? Federal workers in 90 MDAs, ministries, departments, and agencies of government, yet to get January salaries. We did break that story a little earlier somewhere, and it's quite telling that.
Indeed.
I mean, this is widespread. If you ask me, 90 MDAs. I know that there are a lot more that have probably paid, but this is unacceptable. More on this on page 6, where there are some rumored difficulties with the payment platforms at the AG's office and things like that. And wouldn't we love to forget this one? Why do we have these pictures on the front page? Seriously, just move on already. Yes, the Super Eagles missed out on bringing back the glory, but like we did say earlier, the best team won on the night, and it is the host nation, Cote d'Ivoire. I mean, listen, it's a story of, resilience for me. First of all, they almost got knocked out of the entire tournament at the group stage. If Morocco hadn't made it, they wouldn't even get to the finals. And then the person who scored the winning goals, Sebastian Haller, went through a very difficult moment of his life last year, surviving, I think, was it leukemia or something like that? Yes. And yeah. So he survived it, and then, so you know what? You can fall 7 times, but you have to get back up 8 times. I think that's the, and it doesn't really offend me really that much that Ivory Coast won, because they were a very good team at the end of the day. But sad that we couldn't bring home all of the glory. Below that story, Forex crisis, Hajj registration below 50% as payment closes today. This was despite the whole extension of that. These are some of the riders. High fare will prevent Nigerians from filling spots. Low number not peculiar to Nigeria, according to the Hajj Commission. But either way, I think spiritually we all know that you're not under any sort of compulsion to force yourself to go to Hajj. So if you can't make it happen, maybe try next year. Hopefully the situation will be better. Indeed.
At the end of the day, when God calls you, that's where you would go.
Exactly.
All right, away from the Daily Trust newspaper, The Guardian, the major story here says exiting oil firms pollute Niger Delta with 36.1 million liters of crude in 8 years. You'll find the major story on page 6. And there's a spill in barrel. The WHO predicts global shortage of 10 million health workers. Bit of statistics there. You can get that on the Guardian newspaper. Beside that, we have Elephants shock Super Eagles to win 2023 AFCON. I mean, it's a shocker because Nigerians were already, waiting for the cup to get home. We have Anglican Church.
I think we really were too overconfident at some point. I met this guy and he was almost arguing with me that, I was saying we're going to win 2-1. He was going 3-0. I said, that's a little overambitious.
Exactly.
They are the host nation. How can you beat them 3-0 in the finals?
Oh, my God. All right. So beside that, we have Anglican Church. Affair Babalola attacks Tinubu on fiscal policies. The U.S. begins investigation into crash as Access Holdings scouts for the Wigwe's replacement. Sarab sues Akpabio and Abbas over 344.85 billion naira National Assembly budget. I mean, someone is taking a look. Hardship states in Nigeria risks total collapse amid rising hunger, unemployment, JAPA says report. Tinubu berates the ASU, others for criticizing students' loan scheme and says no going back. Okay, that's something that we definitely need to talk about later. APC aspirant suspends participation in Edo Guber primary. Now, these are some of the stories that you would find on the Guardian newspaper today.
All right, let's turn our attention now to the front page of the Nigerian Tribune for today and give you a sense of what stories are being reported on the front page of the Nigerian Tribune for today. These are some of the stories. U.S. to lift ban on Nigerian vessel, gives 3 years plan. More on that on page 6. Federal government should not push ASU to go on strike again. Committee of Vice Chancellors. So a lot more is brewing behind the scenes because, yeah, you get a sense that all of these, this lack of implementation of some of these agreed upon memorandum of understanding is surely going to trigger the union to squeeze the government to force its hand to do what it's supposed to do or what it has even committed itself to do. More on that on page 11. I know a lot of students are not going to like this, but this is what is looming, and it is coming from the Committee of Vice Chancellors, and they should know what they're saying because they are pretty much the ones running the universities. Price of cement soars by 60%. Experts raise alarm. Amid escalating cost of drugs, diabetic, hypertensive patients turn to God for healing. Listen, God was always in the equation, but the reality is medications are not affordable. I mean, even before now, most of them are not affordable, but now they're definitely not affordable for the most part, and that should definitely force the hand of the government to do what it's supposed to address this, because we're on the precipice right now. More on that on page 2 and page 11. NDLEA arrests insurgents, drug supplier, 23 others. Kano Anti-Graft Agency seals of 10 warehouses hoarding foodstuff. We saw some of the images over the past 24 hours, and Nigerians are quite divided about all of that. How Wigwe's chopper crashed, according to the U.S. authorities. Access Bank's management to announce acting CEO Tinubu governors, others mourn. That's one sad truth about life. I mean, you die and the world just keeps on moving, as always. Quite a very big tragedy there. National Assembly molds fresh legal framework for state police and local intelligence gathering. Of course, there's a picture of the president there attending an event recently. So you can pick up the pages and the Nigerian Tribune today to find out more about some of these stories.
All right, the front page of the Vanguard, top of the page there says reform. Edo will save Nigeria $40 billion spent on medical tourism. That's according to Obaseki. AFCON final elephants are champions of Africa, beat Super Eagles 2-1. No, I think Nigeria is still the giant. Let's start there. Rain, wintry weather caused the crash, according to
I
US.
like how Vanguard just put it in one, squeeze the whole story in one small box.
Yeah.
That's what all of them should have done. Not flash it in our faces like.
I mean, so you want them to be as petty as you
Yes,
are.
of course. I would even put it at the back page. Yeah.
All right, rain or wintry. As Tinubu Obi Otedola, the NGX, Access Bank, others mourn Wigwe and Ogumbanjo. The major story says higher prices loom as businesses rely more on loans to survive. Borrowing from banks rises 52%, 1.83 trillion naira. Interest payment raises about 332.3% to 589.62 billion naira. There's the African Creators Summit, a pictorial of that happening. So below the pictorial, we have Edo Guba, Benin Chief, Ikime senators, NLC chairman, emerged PDP delegates, LP aspirants form alliance to secure ticket. Nigeria needs spiritual help to solve challenges. That's according to Adeboye. And harsh economy pushing Nigerians to crime. That's according to Afe Babalola. Now, these are some of the stories on the Vanguard newspaper this morning.
Right.
And then, right now we just head on to the review with our guest, Suleiman Obagaya, former deputy editor, Nigeria Guild of Editors, joining us to review the papers today. Good morning, and thank you for joining us.
Good morning. It's good to see you again, as always.
Indeed.
Are you as sad as Sumaya this morning with regards to the loss? Yesterday, she almost didn't do the program today because she's sad.
Okay, it's not that deep.
You were so badly affected.
It's not that deep.
I was saying either way, if we win, we're still going to have a long night because we probably will be celebrating throughout the night.
Yeah.
If we lose, we're not going to sleep as as we would like to. Exactly.
Well, really, it was a very sad day for 200 million plus Nigerians yesterday when the elephants
also have international support also.
Yeah, exactly.
In Europe, for instance, in Africa, they weren't supporting us much because we were busy making mouth.
Exactly.
But,
and yes, Nigeria has actually impacted a lot. Like, we have made a presence. We have made our presence known in the international world. So there was a lot of support.
Yeah. Indeed there was. But unfortunately, yesterday, the Super Eagles were rather lethargic.
Yeah.
They approached the game not as ambitiously as the home team, exactly. And of course, one pays the price when your approach is rather negative. And that was unfortunately what happened to Nigeria. We were only heavily disappointed. This was a team we've beaten in the group stages, 1-0. And probably overconfidence or
the game plan.
Yeah, or maybe some mishaps in the game plan contributed to what really happened. Yeah. It's so unfortunate that it happened that way.
Let's talk about more depressing things now. Obviously on the front pages this morning. Not funny. Federal workers in 90 MDAs, ministries, departments and agencies of government, are yet to get their January salaries. And we're talking about today being the 12th day of February 2024.
So half the second month is gone already.
So, any surprises there?
Well, I'm not too surprised because in Nigeria, like I had cause to say on a few occasions here, the simplest of things is turned to rocket science. But that is insensitivity taken too far. I do not see how and why government, for any reason, will even think of delaying workers' salary up to this moment, 12th of February, as you rightly pointed out. Usually, January is the longest month because of the festivity, Christmas and the New Year festivities. Salaries are mostly paid between the second and third week. So what that means is that these people have been out of salary for getting to 2 months, for 50-something days now. And to think that, and you know, January is also the month you will have to pay school fees, do a lot of other things. So the expectation is at least, you know, government should have made proper moves to ensure the
same thing happened with the December salaries. There was a delay. They said the IPPS platform had some glitches. Now they're talking about a different platform at the Accountant General's office that is leading to this. But you did talk about the insensitivity of the whole situation, knowing fully well that this is what most Nigerians are going through because of the economic climate. I mean, do you think things like this have been normalized to a point where nobody has been sacked, nobody has been, put on a chopping block to say this is unacceptable, and that is why things like this persist, because it happened just 2 months ago in December.
Exactly. You know, Nigeria, like we've been saying repeatedly, the problem with Nigeria, especially at the governmental level, is that things happen without consequences, as you rightly pointed out. If we have had a case where those that are, causing this kind of problem are punished, I'm telling you, others will learn from that and avoid this kind of tendencies. Unfortunately, there are no consequences. People do what they want. And sadly, even though the rest of the world is moving on with technology, If technology is going to be a problem for us, why don't we go the normal way? I mean, the way we are doing it manually. You know, if the manual way is the best approach to get us resolve our key problems. With insecurity getting upscaled almost on daily basis, Nigeria needs to be very careful with this kind of tendencies where salary, which is a legitimate entitlement of every worker, will be delayed. You know, getting into about half of another month, because today is 12th, and we are not sure it will even be paid this week. We hope they get paid, but there is no guarantee that the payment will even come this week. So what do they expect the workers to do? You know, this is a legitimate entitlement, and it is with salary that they are going to buy food stuff, buy fuel for their vehicles, or pay for their transport fare. When it doesn't get paid, so how do they cope? Do you expect them to take loans where loans don't even exist? You know, or take the crimes? You know, so these are the kind of things we really need to avoid.
Even the people giving loans at this point need loans themselves. It's becoming more tedious. Exactly. It's a really sad situation. But at what point do you think the president needs to, you know, interfere with this situation, considering a lot of people have so much expectation on his administration and he's still holding up to that renewed hope agenda? But then this, just like Abdullah mentioned, is the second month this kind of thing is happening, and it's happening in those most tedious months where people are definitely expecting their money to hit the bank.
Yeah, the president needs to be more responsible for his government. He needs to be firmly in control by ensuring that the right thing is done, by ensuring that those sabotaging his government, because I will look at this in a way as a kind of sabotage. Yeah, it's a form of sabotage, whether it was done deliberately or not, but it's certainly a form of sabotage. The president needs to do something by way of punishing those responsible for this kind of tendencies, like I said earlier.
Staying with the front page of the Daily Trust, the Sultan is asking Nigerians to pray and repent. I mean, at any point in time, this message would resonate. Prayer is always something that we do on a daily basis, and we're always called upon to change our ways. But in relation to this, I think on the Vanguard, the Sumaya read, also Pastor Enoch Adeboye also reiterated the same thing, saying that part of the challenge that we're faced with right now is a spiritual one. What do you make of the spiritualization of the conversation? We all know that prayer is good, but it is not an economic policy that can be implemented.
You see, I think it's an escapist kind of thing. Even though nobody can dispute the indispensability of spirituality in the affairs of humanity, but other countries are not resorting to prayers to resolve the simplest of issues. Even if it is complex, you resort to practicality. And practicality will entail that a major issue like cost of governance be paced squarely and reduced squarely. For example, with all due respect to the Sultan, he is someone I hold in a very high esteem. Why wouldn't he, for example, do something to reduce the rate of poverty in Sokoto, where his palace is located? For example, by reducing the cost of administering the palace, is very, very heavy. I'm not too sure how much it is, but I'm sure the cost will run into billions of naira per month, per year. So why won't the Sultan, for example, do something by way of reducing the cost of running his own palace? So also governors, the president, our legislators. The other day we discussed, several months ago here in this studio, we discussed about legislators spending billions of naira to buy SUVs for themselves. So cost of governance keeps ballooning in Nigeria, and yet we keep complaining about the smallest of things and asking Nigerians to resort to prayers. Of course, Nigeria is the most religious country in the world. They say we have the highest number of mosques, the highest number of churches in the whole world. So it's a prayer nation, and we do pray, like you pointed out, every day. So they don't even need to, with all due respect to them, they don't even need to tell us to pray. But let them also do what is right. There are countries that don't even care about religion at all. I'm sorry, I have to put it that way. But they keep achieving great things. So, of course, we can resort to spirituality and also achieve. Saudi Arabia, for example, you know, is a country at the headquarters of Islam. Yes, look at the way they are they are relying on technology to achieve, to record unprecedented achievements. You know, why don't we look that way? Right. So it's not just religion that is the issue. It's practicality. You have to be real and practical about solving the everyday problems.
I mean, typical example, we see on social media how, you know, the southern Nigerians would tell the northern Nigerians, you people don't talk. I mean, anything that happened, you people just say, it was destined to happen. God has already ordained it to happen and all that. So it could be our leaders know our soft spots, that we are spiritually inclined, and so they will just throw that.
And there's some problems that you can't pray away.
You can't,
because God has given you the faculty, the agency to think about the solutions and to, you know, use your hands to fix it, especially.
And that even issue you raise is about the misapplication of destiny. You know, that is, of course, a very deeply religious issue. It's misapplication of destiny. You don't just, for example, see a trailer coming at high speed and cross the road and say that is your destiny. You know? So like you said, he pointed out, you know, God has given us all the faculties to do what is right, to distinguish the left from the right from the left. So why are we relying on, I mean, blaming God? Because that is a kind of blaming God in for our problems.
Yeah, it's saying that we need to repent also, so we are the cause of our own problems. All right, let's still stick to the hardship of the economy. The front page of the Nigerian Tribune major story is saying price of cement soars to about 60%, and experts are raising alarm on that one. Also, amid the escalating cost of drugs, let's not forget, there's been a bit of, I don't know if the federal government has implemented it, making mention of subsidy when it comes to drugs because of how expensive it was at some point. So what is your take on all this, where the rises of things, the prices of things keep increasing at every level? We saw a situation whereby today someone went to buy sugar and it was about 72, and the next day it's almost 80,000.
You see, it all boils down to the very issue we've been talking about, that is the lack of consequences for negative actions.
Yeah, traders have been pushing for price control. Do you think that would work? I mean,
price control is the way to go. You know, there is a limit to allowing market forces to determine everything. You know, it has tendency.
Market forces at this point, or evil forces, because
honestly,
you know,
yeah, that's the best way to put it.
We talk about, you know, how the prices were, and I think we have some of the footage to show what the anti-corruption commission in Kano is trying to do with regards to hoarding and things like that. Staying in Kano, for instance, just a little over 6 months ago, a bag of maize is around 8,000 plus. Now it's shot over 50,000.
Imagine.
I mean, it's unimaginable to explain, you know, the metrics of how you get from 8,000 to 50-something thousand. Price of bag now ballooning to about 77,000 or so, depending on the markets that you're going to. I mean, what about checking the excesses of the middlemen, of the players within the market who are simply just creating this artificial scarcity so that they can exploit Nigerians?
I think there are two issues. If we look at cement, the example you pointed out, to look at this whole issue. I remember we once had this talk in this very studio about Bua cement, reducing the price of its cement, ex-factory to 3,500 or thereabouts, ex-factory. You know, that is, in the market it will sell at less than 4,000 naira. But the very issue you raise about middlemen, you know, and has been making that practically impossible. Then there is also the issue of competitors. I understand that when Bua Cement made that announcement, some of the competitors, it's not proper to mention names here, went to report to the regulatory agencies that Bua Cement was trying to put them out of business. So the regulatory agencies, obviously, because they are not there to serve the people, insisted that, okay, Bua Cement should not or cannot implement that very human policy that it wanted to implement. You know, so these are some of the things. Then there is also the issue of Consumer Protection Council that we talked about last week, if you remember, on Monday last week. Consumer Protection Council is meant to protect the interests of consumers. Unfortunately, in Nigeria, it doesn't play that way. I don't know whether it is the law establishing the agency that is weak, If it is a law that is weak, then what are the legislators doing about it? You know, they should be able to do something to ensure that the agency really protect the interests of Nigerians, so that the kind of tendency we talk about of maize, that you know, you cited an example with selling at 8,000 at a point last year, and now selling at over 50,000 naira.
Even after the harvest.
Exactly, after the harvest, you know. That is an inflationary rate
500%.
of... exactly, 500% or thereabouts.
And it's quite, you know, unacceptable. If we can wrap things up with a look at the Forex crisis and Hajj registration. Ramadan is just around the corner, and we know Nigerians are one of those countries that usually have some of the biggest slots. And we're quite religious in our, you know, pilgrimage year after year. But things are not looking good this time, because Hajj registration is below 50% as far as payment is concerned, and the deadline is closing today. What are your thoughts about that, especially how this particular trend is mirroring something that we have been talking about all morning?
Unfortunately, there is no way we can meet up with the target of 95,000 that the authorities of Saudi Arabia has given Nigeria. There is simply no way we can meet up with that target. For example, Kano. Kano's slot is 6,100 or thereabouts. Unfortunately, the people who have fully paid as of today, or rather as of yesterday, are just 2,700, less than 50% as this newspaper, the Daily Trust, correctly put it. And it's the same story everywhere in Nigeria. All the states, no state has been able to come up with even 50% of the allocation of the slot given to it. So definitely there will be a crisis. And look at it this way. Who has almost 5 million to pay for Hajj?
Indeed.
You know, of course Hajj is obligatory, but then for Muslims it is said that it's only obligatory for those who can afford. If you have the money, then it is obligatory. If you don't have the money, it is not obligatory. And with 5 million naira, because 4.9 million is barely 5 million, you know, with 5 million naira can change the lives of a lot of people.
Of course it will.
I know of someone who wanted to pay for his brother, and the brother said, 5 million naira?
Just give it to
Give me the money, it will change my life.
Right, exactly.
You know, so
that's a very practical way of looking at it.
exactly.
is.
You know, and also, if you have the money also, if you are looking for reward, I'm telling you there are bigger rewards impeding people now.
Right.
You know, you don't necessarily, I'm not discouraging people to go on Hajj. It is an obligatory.
I mean, at this point, you don't need to discourage. People don't have the money to go. Thank you so much. You know, due to time constraint, of course, we have to wrap up the show. Thank you so much, Suleiman Obagaya, former Deputy Editor, Nigerian Guild of Editors. Appreciate your time.
Thank you so much. You're welcome. All
right, and with that, of course, we have come to the end of Daybreak show on Trust Television. Thank you so much for staying with us. Stay with us at the top of the hour. 360 Sport would be here for you. I am Sumaya Abubakar. Do have a lovely day.
I do hope they are not going to show some of the highlights from the AFCON final because that would be rather traumatic. But anyway, Emmanuel Fashim will be joining you at the top of the hour for the latest in sports. My name is Abdullah Ahmed. Daybreak returns tomorrow live at 8. Until then, good morning.